From the heart of the Dirty 30, it's South Alabama's #1 podcast, Drive Time with DJ and KJ.
Good Tuesday evening. And welcome to Drive Time, still the best worst show ever. This will be the campaign edition, and I appreciate everybody that is in with us tonight. We have it out, I believe, Ken Wood, you correct me if I'm wrong, but we're on the Total BMP network.
We are multi-streaming.
Hot.
I think that's what you call it.
BMP Sports, WIRT.
Yes.
The news.
Yes.
Okay, but we will be monitoring comments and taking questions from the Drive Time page. So regardless of where you are, we appreciate you being in. But if you had a comment or wanted to ask a question, you'd have to get on the Drive Time page to get that in, and certainly be happy to get to it.
Yeah, we're on Boss Man Productions. Let's see, the BMP Sports page, the WIRT, WBOSS, and I think my personal page.
Okay. And
maybe even more. So, but we're good. But if you want to make a comment or question, or have a comment or question, we are monitoring those comments and questions live in the Drive Time with DJ and KJ Facebook page. And good evening.
Wanted to do it this way tonight simply because the last week especially, I was struggling with seeing the questions, trying to get to the questions, address them, answer them, whatnot. I was trying to focus on eye contact and the whole 9 yards, and I just wasn't pleased with the way it rolled out. So we thought tonight, 1 week away from the election, we would do it this way. I think Ken is going to help me spot for questions and comments, and certainly I'll be happy to speak to anything that comes about or anything that I can speak to. If I can't, I'll tell you. But certainly glad to be here tonight. I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know it's been a long day for all of us, especially those with school-age kids, working, whatnot, but to spend a little time with us, we appreciate it. To recap things just a bit, 1 week from today, we'll go to the polls for District 2 and vote on a councilman. I've certainly enjoyed the campaign to this point. I want to first and foremost commend Mr. Weaver. I didn't expect anything less, especially he being a friend of mine in a small town. He's run his race, and I've appreciated that. I've certainly tried to do the same. It's been clean. It's been above board. And that has been a pleasurable experience. A lot of times when you get out and you see some of the things on TV at the state level or the national level, it's not always that way, but it is pleasant to know we can do things here the right way, and we'll see how it shakes out next Tuesday. But I do want to thank him for the way he has conducted himself, and I hope that he feels the same way towards me, because I've certainly tried to do it the right way. I'll be happy to speak to anything that comes about. Was that you instead of me?
Yeah,
wow.
That's me.
Wow, shocker.
It happens.
I want to hit the rewind button just a little bit. 8 years ago, 2012, I don't know if many of you remember or not. Most of you didn't vote for me, but I ran for mayor along with Yank and along with Frank, and I lost. I came in a distant third. And I'm going to tell you something, that was a tough experience. It really was. And probably the toughest part of that night, and also, if it makes sense, the most important part of that night was the way it finished. When the returns came in, and I was shocked how quick it happened. The numbers are there. You've been filleted. You've been beat. It hits you in the nose. Well, anyway, it was very important to me to finish it the right way. There was no other option for me. That's the way I was going to do it. And it was at that point that I realized that, the people that I had the privilege of learning from and being coached by taught you how to react in those situations. And it was certainly a competitive situation. It was not like a football game or a baseball game, but it was a competitive situation nonetheless. You won or you lost. That night, it didn't go my way. I lost. And shortly after it was over with, went to Yank's house. And of course, he had a group there, listening to the results as I had a group at my place of business at the time. And walking up that sidewalk, it was a tough walk. It was a tough walk indeed. And when you go in, you see the excitement, you see the jubilation that they're having, and they should have. That was a big night for him. A lot of the people in there I was friends with. A lot of parents in there that I coached their kid, in ball. And you don't take it personal But you kind of do. And it's nothing that is carried over. It only took me probably 4 or 5 years to get over it. But you go in there, and they were very gracious to me. Let me say that first and foremost. I was greeted with handshakes and hugs and well wishes and congratulations and keep your head up. And they couldn't have been kinder to me than they were that night. And I appreciated that. It didn't take the sting out of it. It still hurt going up there. Well, I left there, went around the corner, went to Frank's house, and I enjoy a social friendship with Frank. And I had even more friends there, and it was the same type of environment. They were, excited to be in the runoff. They were celebrating as they should have been, but it was still tough. And you go in there, and it was the same reception. They patted me on the back, shook my hand, gave me a hug, and all that, and that's what it was. But at both places, that night and in the days that followed, I was asked by each of them to openly endorse each of them and try to encourage the 6 or 7 people that voted for me to do the same. And I chose not to. I didn't think that was fair to the process. I think how you play the game is important. I think the process deserves a certain amount of respect. I did not pick a side. I did not endorse a side. I didn't encourage anybody to endorse a side. I stayed out of it. And so I'm saying all that to say this. I learned a lot, from that experience. I learned a heck of a lot from it. And I was proud of the way that I finished the race. I think my coaches would have been proud of the way I finished the race. Each one of them, Coach Sasser, Coach Roch, Coach Washington, Coach Baker, Coach Prater, Coach Hart, Coach Riggs, all of them would talk about that. It's important to finish what you start. It's important, especially when things aren't going good. Anybody can do it when things are going your way. Who can't be first class when things are going your way? But do it in those times of adversity. Do it when you've been hitting the nose a little bit, and you'll be a better person for it. And I was 42 at the time, and I was going back and drawing back on those experiences from when I was 16, 17, and 18. So you hear a lot about team activities, team sports, and the lessons you can learn and the life lessons. That was a big one for me. And like I said, that was a tough night. And probably the bigger part for me is I got a couple of years away from this thing, and I did realize, I came to realize that there were 2 better candidates for mayor at that time than I was. I certainly didn't think it, when I put my name on the ballot, I thought that I was the best choice. That's why I proceeded with campaigning and trying to convince the people that I was. But that was hard to get to that point. Like I said, Frank's a friend of mine. Yank was of course it went his way. They were both better candidates than I were for the mayor position 8 years ago, and things finished out the way it should have. And I think Brewton is better because it went that way. To be perfectly honest with you, but that brings me to now, and of course it's been 8 years later. I didn't. For those of you that may not have heard me speak to this, I want to share it once again. I did not identify Lawrence Weaver to run against. I would have run for city council in any of the 5 districts. My address on Escambia Avenue puts me in District 2. That's where I can qualify to run. So that's what I did. When I looked at the city council, the current city council, and I've shared this with many of you, 5 of the 6 of them are retired. That includes the mayor. 5 city council and the mayor. 5 of the 6 are retired. None of them have school-age children, currently in their household. And when I look at perspective and I look at decisions and I look at things that have to take place, with everyday city business, I think that perspective needs to be in there to have a more complete picture. I want to provide that. I think we should have a seat at the table. Those of you who have children like I do, I hope you see it that way. I hope you see the importance of having a voice at the table. The 2 generations above me, in terms of age, I hope you see the importance. I hope you want that for us. Those of us who are still working, trying to make a living in this town, those of us who are raising children, I hope you want that for us. I think that makes for a healthier outlook. I think it makes for a more complete outlook. And I hope that you can see that. As I've, worked the campaign trail the last couple of weeks, I've certainly enjoyed the visits. I've certainly enjoyed the comments, the discussion that we've had. That has been very good for me. I've gotten a lot of information that I didn't necessarily have access to prior to this. And that kind of brings us back to why we're here. The COVID-19 has certainly changed everything for all of us in terms of how we do things. And this gives us a safe chance to communicate and and share ideas and questions and comments. And of course, all those will be welcome. We're not up against a time frame necessarily here tonight. I certainly don't want to keep you all night, but as long as there's a conversation to have, I'll be happy to stay. And you're welcome to, put your comments and questions in, and Ken can help me find those from time to time, and we'll just kind of answer them as we go. But that's kind of in a nutshell of why I threw my name in the hat. And I'm looking forward, to this last week. I'm going to keep my nose down. I'm going to run hard. I'm going to make another run through District 2. That'll be 3 complete trips for me. I've caught a bunch of you at the house on those visits. Several others I've gone back and enjoyed those visits as well. There's still a couple of more that I hadn't had a chance to nail down just yet, but I'm going to get to you. I'm going to find you, and I'm going to, give you at least something I hope to consider come next Tuesday. But it has been a good experience. I've learned a lot over the last 8 years, not only about myself, but about this town. I think I have a good understanding of the history of this town. I think I have a pretty good understanding of when things have been successful, why they've been successful. I do recognize there's a lot of change in Brewton. We're going to be different from a what would you call it? From having resources in place necessarily. A lot of those resources have moved out in terms of income, and in terms of being able to go to folks and help out with different voids that may occur within our city. If it's a facility, an improvement to a facility, if it's funding of a program. So we will have to find different ways to do some things. But once again, all that can be done. One of the things, and I've been pretty consistent in this, and I learned this from my dad years ago, it's the people in our town. It's the people in our town that truly set us apart. I think, and I'm not being critical of any of the surrounding towns at all. I'm just trying to put a feather in our cap, in our collective cap. And as long as we have the people, and we have the passion, and we have the commitment, there's no reason to believe that we can't continue to do the things that we've done for 100 years. But I hope that I can get your consideration between now and next Tuesday. If I haven't seen you, and for me to come by, if you want to send me a text, I'll put my phone number on here real quick. You're happy to reach out to me, and I'll come to you. I'll have a mask. I'll do whatever I need to do to create a safe environment and make you feel comfortable about discussing things further. But I would love to hear from you. One of the things that I can assure you is I live here full time. I'm going to be accessible. I'm a great listener. Want to listen. I think that's how you learn. I'm certainly going to be an independent thinker. I believe in group discussion. I believe in debate. I believe in, sometimes having difficult conversations. Get in there and talk about things that people don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about, but are real issues. I think that's how you come to solutions. I think that's how you solve problems. And I believe this probably first and foremost over anything else. I believe reasonable people can always find common ground. It may take a little while to hammer it out. We may have to agree to disagree initially. I believe in, letting things kind of marinate for a while, then getting back together and trying to find something that works for everybody involved. But I do believe reasonable people always find common ground. And I think that happens. I think it happens here in Brewton, and I think it can continue to happen. Any questions popped up?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to get through kind of weeding them all, not weeding them, but like gathering them all together from several places. Let's see. First question was from Donald Thompson. Does DJ have his corn dogs for snacks?
Gonna be snackless tonight, Donald. Appreciate that. We're gonna be snackless tonight. I got a big week ahead of me, and got to pay attention to the diet.
Good evening, Michael Floyd from the loveliest village on the plains.
Yes, sir. Getting it done.
Let's see here. JP Snaps, Jennifer Parker. She says she agrees someone in the chair should have a school-aged child.
Well, I just think it's important. I believe in diversity. I certainly think, as many demographics as can be covered should be. And, I think it goes without saying that our kids are our most valuable resource. I believe that. I think most people do. And if you do believe it, then they are deserving of a place at the table as decisions are made. That's what I believe. I think, once again, when you talk about complete perspective and understanding how decisions affect other things, that perspective is needed. And I don't think there's an agenda there against anybody or anything. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying if you are not wired in, if you are not directly impacted by it, it is easy sometimes not to consider what a consequence could be or can be. So I appreciate you recognizing the importance of it also, Jennifer. And I just think that's paramount. I really do.
Steve Nelson, Nelly Rock. He says, as a citizen of Bruton, we have always been concerned about perpetuation, meaning bringing back young people to Bruton. As a business owner, I'd like to hear your concerns about this subject.
That's a good question. And I spoke to this a little bit last week, and I've been pretty consistent in this. And I won't have a definitive answer of how we're going to do it, but I will certainly share some ideas that I have. When I was a high school kid, there was no doubt in my mind that I wanted to come live in Bruton, Alabama. I knew that this is where, when the time was appropriate, I wanted to raise my family here. I loved everything it had to offer. Small town living agrees with me. I love it. And I didn't know how I was going to make my living. I figured I'd figure that out once I got back here, but Bruton was going to be my spot. I certainly want that for kids that are coming up now. I understand some have to go out and spread their wings and get in a bigger pond. I get it. Bigger communities, bigger cities have some different things to offer. I understand it. I think that we grow good people here. I think we grow people that want to transition into the bigger ponds. I think they're ready. I think, what we have in the school system and what we have in terms of quality of life programming here and different social opportunities, I think we grow well-adjusted people to go do that. In terms of them coming back, and you hear this a lot in most communities, especially rural communities, it's workforce development. If you have jobs available, if you get industry back here, and every community in the country is trying to recruit industry. Everybody. That's an everyday fight. I think some of the things that we have in place that could help us are the things that I talked about. Having a quality school system. I think it's an A-rating school system. That's big. I think, having health care in place, having quality health care is big. So if you don't get the industry in your town, so to speak, you can get those rooftops. And when I say rooftops, the people living in your community. One of the things that I've been concerned about is, a lot of us talk about, if you talk about the population of Bruton, a very casual number of people throw out is 7,000 or 7,500. We're closer to 5,000. We are not we are not showing growth in terms of numbers. As this industry comes into Southwest Alabama or Northwest Florida, if you have some of these other things in place, it gives you a second chance to win. Quality school system, as I mentioned, quality health care, as I mentioned, quality of life, endeavors, as I've mentioned. You get those rooftops in, that supports your local tax base. You certainly have to have housing. Housing is an issue in Bruton. We're a little landlocked in terms of what the Bruton city limits is. I think there have been efforts in the past to try to expand that and get it rezoned. It wasn't met, with a great reception, so to speak. I'm not sure the method used at the time, of course, hindsight being 2020, was the best way to go about it. I think they tried to encompass a big area as opposed to piece by piece. And I think that's not unlike, the campaign I've employed. You go to each individual homeowner outside the city limits and say, here's what we have to offer. Here's how this can benefit you. Here's why we want you in our community. And that just increases your city tax base. It increases your numbers. You become more attractive from a demographic standpoint in terms of attracting different industries. A lot of it, our numbers don't match up. If somebody wants to come here, they see the 5,000 number, we're immediately off the list before we can showcase our school system or showcase our health care or showcase our YMCA or all those things. So to answer your question, Steve, and I appreciate it, and I certainly understand it, I know that doesn't give you a plan in terms of how we're going to do it, but I think that's the path we take. I think we focus on, we are certainly trying to get industry here, but if we can compete for rooftops and where they can live and how they can live and show them the things we have to offer, I think that could be another opportunity at a win, so to speak. But thank you for the question.
Sherry Weaver asked, what are your thoughts on annexing East Bruton into Bruton? Pros and cons.
That's another, age-old question. And I'm going to tell you something, Sherry. You're not going to get me killed here tonight going too far down that road. If you looked at it if you lived up in the Pacific Northwest and you looked at it and you looked at the two rural towns and you looked at the two city services and you looked at the two police departments and everything that goes along with it, and you looked at the two schools, you would say a duplication of services is occurring over and over and over again. And they would be right. But down here where we live, we have that little body of water that runs between the two towns called Murder Creek. And getting past the W.S. Neal and the T.R. Miller, I'll be honest with you, that would be a tough one. I do sometimes find myself drifting in thought. And if you looked at, for instance, we have both W.S. Neal and T.R. Miller. Now, we have spent a lot of money on schools in recent years, and it was needed. W.S. Neal needed a new high school. T.R. Miller needed our Bruton City Schools needed a new middle school. We needed a new high school. But you talk about the millions of dollars built to build all these schools. What if all that money went into one pot and you built a single school? Then how much further would that money have gone? Sometimes I find myself dreaming about that and thinking about it. But in terms of in our lifetime, that ever happening, I don't see it. I just don't. And I'll be honest with you. There's one Friday night out of the year that I'm glad it hasn't happened. I love the game. I love the rivalry. I love watching the communities get excited about it. But that's a big one.
Donald Thompson asks, I do not live in the city limits, but what happens in Bruton affects everyone, i.e. schools, businesses, sales tax. How do you feel about the higher sales tax we have in Bruton? Do you feel it affects people spending locally?
Well, I haven't heard anything in an official capacity. Let me say that first and foremost. But like many of you, I've heard some of the sidewalk talk about the sales tax going from 10 to 11%. It went from 9 to 10%, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And there has been talk. I heard it talked about at lunch yesterday. It wasn't at the table I was at, but it was a table beside me talking about some advanced conversations of moving it from 10 to 11. I believe taxes are important. Taxes provide us infrastructure, whether it's highways, bridges, water, gas, all those things that we need to live the lives we live. So I'm not an against tax kind of guy. I certainly enjoy some of the things that tax money goes towards in our town. I've said it many times. I love the flowers. I love them. I love the sidewalks. I probably enjoy the sidewalks as much as any amenity that's been added in recent years. Love the sidewalks. I love the parks. I love what O'Bannon has become. I recreate at O'Bannon. I go down there on weekends. I take me a pepperoni pizza and a blanket, and I lay out and recreate. So I enjoy all of that. I think, when you look in terms of moving the tax, increasing taxes to help cover some of these expenses, I think you have to have a lot of discussion. I think number one, you have to bring in the stakeholders, which stakeholders are obviously us as consumers, us that pay the tax. And I think more importantly, you bring in the business owners and at least give them an audience. Let Josh Godwin come in and tell you what he thinks it's going to do to him. You bring in Melanie McGugan at Just Do. You bring in the Harringtons at the Flower Shop. You bring in Tracy and Mallory at Tallulah Bells. You bring in Andrew Clark down at Weaver's, and at least let them have a say-so. I'm not saying the conversation is going to end in their approval or in the way they want it to, but you allow them an opportunity to speak and tell you what they foresee it doing to their business, because they are our local economy. I mean, they should matter to us. They should have that opportunity, as well as any citizen that comes in and have concern. I do know this. Everybody has a breaking point, and for all of us, it's different. And I'm not suggesting that 11% becomes the breaking point and the proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back. But I would throw this into the hopper. What if it is? What if gas at $1.75 a gallon, and all of a sudden, John Doe goes out to buy groceries, and he realizes he can go 16 miles down the road to Century, Florida, and pay 0% for groceries, as opposed to going to Pick and Save and paying 11%. And then what if Jerry Doe does it, and Mary and Karen and whoever, and all of a sudden, if that becomes the breaking point, then you quite possibly end up with another 30,000 square foot empty building in the middle of town. You end up with, I don't know how many people they employ there, 30, 40, 50 people, 30, 40, 50 families who no longer have a paycheck. And that creates a separate set of problems from the one that happened from cash flow. So I think before you do any of that, I think you first and foremost, You look at your overhead, you look at your payroll, you look at your overtime, you look at expenses to provide services and find out where you can trim, where you can save. And then you bring in the stakeholders and let them have their say. And once again, it goes back to trying to find something that works for everybody. I can tell you at 10%, which we are currently at, we are higher than 85% of the municipalities in the state of Alabama. The highest is 11.5, unless that's changed very recently. So if you take the bump to 11, then we're at the top. We're at the tip top. So I think, once again, you want to be responsible in how you spend money. You save every chance you get. You weigh the pros and cons in terms of having this or doing without to save this and to keep that. And I think it goes back once again to allowing people to have a voice, allowing people to share their comments, share their frustrations, or share their concerns, whatever it may be. And I think you find something that works. I think it goes back to, once again, reasonable people will find something that works. But I don't think you raise taxes without doing that. That's my opinion.
Alan Howard has a question. He says the land next to Walmart, it has been vacant for 12 years. Has any business or person been interested in developing something there?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know who the property owner is, and I can't speak to that. I don't know if anybody's, I don't know. I wish I did, but I don't.
Sherry Weaver also says East Bruton has had 11% sales tax for several years.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
11%, once again, 11% might be right for that community. I'm not telling you that 11% is not right for our community. But I think, once again, you go back and make sure that you can relay to the people, it costs this to provide this, how bad do we want it, and then you allow people to have their say.
Michael Floyd want to know, is there going to be a place to watch the election results live?
That's a good question. I actually asked that today. I called Steve Uhouse and asked how it would play out. The way I understood it from him today, the polls will close at 7. There will be a voting location over at Alco. When that box closes, it'll be brought to Bruton City Hall. They will tally up the 3 boxes and then relay how it shakes out. I don't know if a radio station is going to be involved. I don't know if the city of Bruton is going to go live through Bruton TV. I don't know that. He just told me that probably a safe guess was between 8 and 8:30 results would be in.
Steve Stanton, Pork Chop.
Hey, Chief.
He wants to know if you and Chief Salter of the Bruton Fire Department can work together.
Absolutely. I know Chief Salter casually, but I certainly know him to be a good man, and anybody who's a first responder, whether it's with the fire department, police department, or the ambulatory service, volunteer firefighters included, I'm with that. They're my heroes.
Let's see. Like I said, I'm kind of jumping around just to make sure I get everybody. Well, let's see here.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Heath Madison said Patty Neal owns that property.
Okay.
I didn't know who that was.
That would be a question for Patty. Obviously a private landowner. She certainly is well within her rights to do with it however she sees fit. Thank you, Brian Lisenby. I appreciate you, man.
Let's see. Check some of this here and see if we got anything. Well, I'm looking hard, but
I got a text.
All right.
I'm going to read this.
Go ahead with it.
Do you believe, or what do you prefer, elected school boards or appointed school boards? That's a good question. And since you texted to me, I guess just keep it between you and I who it is. But anyway, I've said this before, and I would be consistent moving forward on this. I'm for appointed school boards. That's what I'm for. And I have a pretty good school board story that I'll actually show with you or share with you. I have had some concerns in recent years with the school system, and my concerns revolved around this. There had been a turnover rate of historical proportions in terms of teachers, administrators, coaches, whatnot. Historical turnover. Attendance and revenue taken in through extracurricular activities, primary athletics, has been at an all-time low. So that is what it is. And I went and I actually sat down and had 3 separate conversations with 3 school board members. The 3 that I've enjoyed friendships with. I don't mind sharing who they are. Bart Till is one of them. He's a lifelong friend of mine, a former teammate in high school. And I shared my concerns with him. I certainly thought he listened to me. He gave me audience. He showed me courtesy, showed me respect. He didn't necessarily see things the way that I did on some issues. I had a similar conversation with Mark Manning and Ann Peach. And I was heard. That was the most important thing. They extended courtesy me to hear me. They saw things a little differently, and I respect that. Just because things don't go my way, I'm not going to get my ball and go home or want to change the rules. I believe in the system. I believe in the process. I believe in the way it plays out. It had nothing to do with who the football coach at Terra Miller is. Nothing. I think we have a great coach at Terra Miller right now, Brent Hubbard. I hope he stays forever. We'll be better for it. Our young people will be better for it. He's put together a great staff. They're going to do big things here, and I'm glad he's here. Personally, I pulled for another guy. It didn't go his way. My concerns had nothing to do with the football coach. It was the other that I just spoke to. But I was given audience. I was given opportunity to say my piece. Things worked out, the other way, but I still believe in the system. I like the appointed. I like the appointed school board. I do think there's some criteria in place. I think that, at least a couple of them should have kids in the school system, which we do. I think a couple of them ought to at least be alumni, and they are. And I think you ought to have a couple that can bring some outside perspective, and we do. So I think it's set up right. I would warn against, lengthy appointments. I think they each sign up for a 5-year term. I think it's very important to recognize that it's volunteer. Those people are paid nothing. They put up with a lot. They meet a lot. They put a lot into it. They care about it. But that is a volunteer position, and more times than not, thankless. And I certainly want to take this opportunity to thank them for their service. It certainly hasn't been easy the last 4 or 5 years. But I'm all for appointment. I would probably just trying to make sure that those don't turn into de facto lifetime appointments. And that certainly hasn't been the case, but I would always keep a watchful eye to that.
Lewis Hinote asked, will you have an open door policy to come to you anytime if there is a problem?
Absolutely. Like I said, I live here full time. I vacation here most of the time. I've posted my phone number earlier. I'll post it again a second time. I'm a good listener. I like to listen. I like to discuss. I like to have healthy debate. I think that makes us all stronger. When it's all said and done, I'm going to be an independent thinker, but I'm going to share with you my reasons of how I came to where I came. I think to be a servant of the people, you have to have a servant's heart. I've been a volunteer in this community for 30 years, and I've loved every bit of it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not wanting a pat on the back. Some of my best memories and life experiences have come from doing that, and I've enjoyed every bit of it. But I do love Bruton. I want this job, and I'm real serious when I tell you I want it. I want everything that comes with it. But surely having an open door policy, that's a no-brainer.
This question was texted to me, so and they asked that I just ask the question.
Thank you, Brandy.
Trying to word this the way they worded it. It was floated around years ago in a mayor's race about transparency and putting the checkbook, so to speak, of Bruton online for all to see. What are your thoughts?
You can attest to this. From a technical standpoint, I don't know what's capable and what's not capable. I understand the premise of it. And let me first and foremost say, I believe in transparency. I believe everything above the table. Let's talk about it. I believe in open forum. I believe in open discussion. I've said that many times, and I'll continue to say that. From a legality standpoint, from a practical standpoint, can a checkbook be put online to where everybody can see every check that's written and dollar spent? I don't even know if it's doable. I guess if everything is above board, I would certainly not have a problem with it. But once again, if it ties up too much manpower just to make that happen, that takes somebody away from doing something else that might help move the wheel a little quicker, I don't know that I would be for it if it came to that, if that makes sense.
Let's see how to, I've got another text and I'm trying to.
I had one come in as well.
Yep, go ahead then.
Okay. Do you feel like you would have a good working relationship with the mayor and the city council members if they love Bruton, and I suspect that they do, and if they love the people of Bruton, and I suspect they do, then we would have a great working relationship, because that's where my heart is as well. So I can't see how that would be a bad thing or create hurdles that couldn't be crossed. I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it again. I'm going to be an independent thinker. It's not going to be rubber stamped. It's not going to be just because. I'm going to have an opinion, but I also certainly understand the importance of being a team player and being part of a team. I've spent my life building them and competing with them. So, yes, I don't see any issues there at all.
John Commander asks, what are your thoughts on the closing and possible reopening of the Dogwood Hills Golf Course?
That's a good question. And I've actually there's been a lot of conversation about that in the past. And I think if I remember correctly, and I'm not saying this for certainty, I think the information that came out was Dogwood Hills was losing $100,000 a year. I think there was an audit that was done, and I think that's the number that came out. Once again, I'm not saying that with certainty, but I think 100,000 was the number. The Dogwood Hills was certainly a quality of life, activity that provided another area of recreation and entertainment for our community. It had certainly been here a long time. It kind of goes back to the financial side of it. If it wasn't cost effective, and that money could be better used to move our community in a positive way, then I get it. I wasn't in on the conversations. I think it's something that could be revisited. I think there's enough interest there to maybe do something in terms of moving in that direction again. And I'm saying that because of what has happened with some other things. And this is kind of comparing apples to oranges just a bit. But if you notice, the swimming pool closed, and now it's coming back. Now, you're not talking about anything close in terms of dollars to make that happen. But, we came back to splash pads, and now we're coming back with a pool. So I think you could certainly get it on the table for discussion. But once again, all that is based on me, I think, recollecting that $100,000 was lost each year. I think that's right.
Did you say you had another?
No, I just answered mine.
Okay. Let me find this one again.
You're on, actually. You were on.
Let me find where. What are your thoughts on who and or the process of the next police chief for the city of Bruton?
If I understand this correctly, and once again, I'm not sitting at the table, so I cannot speak to certainty on this. It is my understanding that the mayor has appointed 2 current council members, and I think they are Kerry Brown and Joe Watson, along with 2 community citizens of our community. I think that's Roger Chapman and Ola Ball. And if I understand it correctly, they are going to interview all the qualified applicants, do what they have to do in terms of trying to whittle that down, and then we'll come back and make a recommendation to the city council and the mayor, and it kind of goes from there. So it sounds like they have a plan in place. Sounds like that they have a system that'll work, and I have no doubt, being the town that we are, there will be several qualified candidates throw their name in, and I'm sure they'll get us a good one. They'll have big shoes to fill.
Yes, they will.
They'll have big shoes to fill.
Yes,
but I think they'll get us a good one.
Why wouldn't they rent out Dogwood Hills to a person to take care of it by donation to play? That's a question from Lewis Highnote.
Once again, I can't speak to that. I don't know how the city was approached. I think that a lot of times, whether it's this issue, whether it could be something else, it may seem simple on the surface, but when you talk about liability and you talk about insurance and you talk about risk management, there's a lot of moving parts there where the city has to cover its bases. I don't think for one second that they don't want us to have things to do. I think that they've probably made the best decisions they could with the information they had and the ideas that were on the table at the time. The thing that I simply suggest is maybe it's time to revisit it and see if other options are available. There certainly seems to be enough interest and concern about it to at least discuss it.
This was another text message. With the new norm of COVID-19, how do you feel the city has done, I guess they're asking, grappling with this issue of COVID-19, and what would you have done different, if anything?
I think for the most part, the efforts have been good. I think, once again, you heard me speak earlier about the people. I mean, Sarji Patel and Wade Winstead were the boots on the ground earlier in terms of providing leadership. They had the brute and strong, certainly partnered up with the city. Couldn't have done, their efforts would have never happened without the city's cooperation. But the fact that they got out there and kind of plugged and played a little bit with our local eateries and retail, keeping some stimulus there, I think was important. I think it was certainly invaluable, and it was heartwarming to see that. I certainly think you and I on Drive Time played a small piece in that in terms of trying to get information out, whether it was from the state school board superintendent, whether it was from healthcare officials in the county, whether it was trying to,
Department of Transportation,
whether we could serve as a constant reminder to support our local businesses. I do think moving forward, especially with the uncertainty of the economic times, and we've heard it since we were born, shop local, shop local, shop local. In my opinion, it'll never be more important than it is the days we're living in now and moving forward. So, the city, I think, bought some masks, and the fire department was good enough getting to set up in several locations and get those out. I'll be honest with you, and once again, I've been consistent in saying this. I'm not crazy about the mask. I wear mine in public for respect for the herd. I do. But it has been interesting to see that the numbers seem to have flattened out a little bit in terms of new cases. Is that directly attributed to the mask? I don't know, but I'm going to keep wearing mine when I'm in public, and hopefully that'll continue to be the case, and we can get back to some sense of normalcy. With football getting ready to kick off Friday, I know a lot of folks are excited about that everywhere. Certainly want to win the game, but I think getting out and getting to see all the kids do what they do, whether it's on the football field, the band, cheerleaders, or just getting out and enjoying a little bit of fellowship from 6 feet apart, I think people are excited about that. My hope is that, we don't have one of those crazy outbreaks, week 2 and 3 into it. And I think, once again, going back to the original question of doing something different, nobody really knew coming into it. I think we all saw that. It was a fluid situation, continues to be so. Information continues to change. Back in March, they were telling us that the warm temperatures of the summer was going to kill the virus. Well, that certainly didn't happen. If anything, it served as fertilizer. So I think strong moves were made locally. I think the effort was certainly there, and I would have expected nothing less, from the people that we have in place pushing the buttons.
Let's see. I agree with that, Chef Adam.
I concur.
Yes, no doubt. I agree with that too. Sherry Weaver, Jeff Salter has worked tirelessly in his COVID efforts with the fire department.
I think that he was named by the mayor as the COVID guy. I know it was a different title than that, but he became the COVID guy. I think he was the one that was getting information, relaying it to the city council, and he kind of became the facilitator, if you will, between city government and the community.
This was texted me. I know this has been asked before, but I don't know if it's been asked tonight. What? I'm trying to. I got so many coming here. Okay. What was or if you know, what was the holdup of the Saul Road project? I guess they're talking about the paving project. What was the holdup on that, and why did it take so long, if you have anything on that?
I know just enough to be dangerous. I certainly don't know enough to speak from an authoritative standpoint, but I think it came down to where the funding was coming from. I think federal funds were involved in that, along with some state funds. And I think the further out it goes band-wise, like if all the funding is local, then you obviously have a lot of say-so in how and when things get done. If it moves out to the state level, you have a little less say-so, a little harder to get folks on the phone and get people moving. And then if it gets out to the federal level, it even compounds the problem. So not making excuses for it. I understand the hardship and the frustration that went on with the project. But I think it had to do with where the funding was coming from and getting those decision makers and shot callers in place to finish it. I will say this, and I hope the hardship has passed. I hope it wasn't too terrible on anybody. It's really nice now.
Another question. I've got 5 or 6 that's just coming back to back here. What are your thoughts or ideas to bring industry, businesses, restaurants, etc., into the city of Brewton?
We talked about that a little bit earlier. And when you talk about bringing industry in, every community in this country is trying to recruit jobs for their respective community. Everyone. That's a daily fight that you fight. I think years ago when Coastal Gateway came up in our area, and I think it was the 7 Southwest Alabama counties?
Yes.
6 or 7, whatever it was. I actually liked the regional concept better. And I certainly liked it with the counties that we were in play with, because if you get it in your area, first of all, if you get it in your town, that's a win. That's a big win. The one thing you have to ask yourself is, do you have the workforce to manage the job? You know, if somebody wanted to come in right now and hire 100 people in Brewton, Alabama, do we have 100 people that can provide or do the work needed to man those jobs? Workforce development is a big thing. You got to get in the high schools, you got to get in the trade schools, got to make that happen. And those efforts are underway and have been ongoing for some time. But if you miss out on getting the industry itself, the physical plant in your town, if you have other things in place, and we talked about the school system, we talked about healthcare. Healthcare is a biggie. You know, if you don't have a quality healthcare, in my mind, you're not really a player. You're not legitimate. I think it's important that D.W. McMillan Hospital stays where it is and continues to grow and continues to expand services. I think that's another feather in our cap. So if you don't get the physical structure, the physical plant in your town, hopefully the people that man those jobs will choose to live in your community to take advantage of the things you can offer. You know, we got a YMCA, got a great school system, great health care. I mean, Brewton's a nice place to live. So once again, you have a little bit of a housing issue there that we need to continue to work around. But there's a couple of ways to win. Obviously, the big win is getting industry in your town, but the second one would be to get the rooftops.
This is kind of expanding on the question about what your thoughts are on the city and their COVID efforts. What are your thoughts on the city school system and county school systems COVID-19 efforts?
I can't speak really to the county efforts because I'm not as familiar with it. I heard there was a little issue in Flomaton at the end of last week. I certainly hope that they've gotten that taken care of and safe situation for the kids and the teachers and everybody that's there, support staff or whatnot. I can speak to Brewton Middle School. That's where I have a 6th grader. I can speak to direct efforts on that. We've had a good first week and a half of school. I can tell you when I drop them off, they all have their mask on. When I'm there in the pickup line, they all have their mask on, no exceptions. So I think protocols in place. I think more importantly, leadership's in place to make sure they're as safe as they can be. And talking with my 11-year-old daughter, she talks about how the day plays out. You know, they're spaced out in class. They're spaced out at lunch a little bit. Lunch is probably, if something was going to happen, where it probably could, you know, kids being kids. But I'm very pleased with Bruton Middle School, and that's where I have a direct line of contact, so to speak.
PGP asks, what are 3 things you see as necessary for growth that you would ask the council to support?
I don't know that I've gotten that far with it, PGP. You know, I haven't allowed myself, you know, to really embrace the idea that I'm going to be a city council person. What I've tried to focus my efforts on is letting the people know that I care, that I will care, that anything that I do, if I were to win, would be a labor of love. I love Bruton. I said this, I think, last week. I've never, ever claimed to be, you know, the flag bearer for the town of Bruton, but I would certainly have my hand somewhere on that flagpole. There are some things that I would like to see, and a lot of that has been from my discussion and conversations on the campaign trail. I think you do revisit Dogwood Hills just a bit. I'm not telling you it's 1, 2, or 3, but I've heard enough about it that it probably ought to be revisited. If the tax thing came up, I would like to see a good in-depth conversation on that with the stakeholders we mentioned earlier. I'm not saying that the tax increase isn't the play. I think it's only the play after you have determined that you've been good stewards of the money that you have, and that you've allowed the people to say what they need to say and voice their opinions, and then make the best decision that gives Bruton a chance to succeed moving forward. So that'd be a couple of things.
John Commander asks, what role, if any, can the city play in improving the cell internet services?
That's a good question, and I don't know what the city can do. I would think, you know, with
AT&T is terrible,
and that's what I'm saying. I don't know what say so or what leverage we would have with them in terms of trying to, you know, improve the coverage we have or the services that we get. I would think that if the city had an opportunity to play a part in that, I would certainly think they would and probably have. But I'm not even sure if that's I'm not even sure if it's reasonable to think that they could have leverage in that. But I don't know for sure.
Another text question. You've mentioned in the past that you would like to see more of the workshop type atmosphere in the city council meetings versus the workshops prior to the city council meetings. Could you expand on that, please?
Yes, I do. You know, I understand. I understand there are different ways to skin a cat, for lack of a better term. There are some things in terms of conversation that probably need to take place in the confines of a workshop. But I believe the majority of the time, the conversation, the discussion, the debate should take place out front. I certainly, if I win, I certainly want District 2 to know how I feel about something and why I would vote the way I would vote. Whether they agree with me or not, I would like for them to know the information that I considered and factored in that led me to the decision that I made. And I don't see a problem with that. I do see where it would, cause a city council meeting to be a little more lengthy. And I'm not saying you sit there and discuss everything. You know, if it's accounts payable, you know, let's look at the register, you know, and make sure everything is in line there and move on through it. But in terms of the big stuff, I think it should be discussed out front. I believe that. I do.
This question is kind of like all over the place, so I'm going to try to paraphrase. What are your thoughts on Provalis and the number of jobs or lack of jobs that Provalis has provided to the city of Bruton community? And that's paraphrased down.
I don't have a complete understanding of Provalis and their partnership with the city of Bruton, nor have I tried to get it and been denied the information. I'm not suggesting that. I just not looked that much into it. I've heard enough about it on the campaign trail that would probably, going back to PGP's thing, that would probably be one of the three that I'd like to have better information on. I've seen their mission statement. I think if they are able to fulfill their mission statement, I think it could be a home run for Bruton in terms of what it could do in terms of revitalizing downtown. It makes sense to me, the little bit I know about it, that could be our last best chance at salvaging downtown Bruton, to be quite honest with you. I don't understand, probably since the day before, to be that hungry and to eat that meal like that. So I always paid attention to that, and my heart always hurt a little bit thinking that might be taking place. The concern I have is with the number of people at the elementary school and the medical school who are on free or reduced lunch. It stands to reason that when those kids become high school age, that they might still be in need of that assistance, and it's not there. I don't even know how they feed them at the high school. I don't, when I was there was vending machines, there was juice you could buy, and there would be some vendors that would come in 1 or 2 days a week and sell their product. I don't know if that's still taking place. I don't have one in high school, so I can't speak to that. But certainly with all the advancements we've had and the great things we have going on in our school system, I would assume that the nutritional need is being met in some capacity. I certainly hope so.
Lewis, I know, wants to know, what would you do about the old houses that are overgrown or about to fall down?
That's tough. And there's ordinances in places. The city, I can speak to this a little bit because my dad was in place as mayor when this has been an ongoing issue. There are things that you can and can't do legally. If somebody has a deed on a property, if somebody owns the structure, as unsightly as it may be, there is a process you have to go through. And when it's a legal process, you can be rest assured that it takes time. And some of the language that's in some of that wording is if a property becomes overgrown, unsightly, becomes a health hazard, so to speak, then you have X number of days. Well, some of these property owners, when they see it getting to that point, they may go cut the grass. And in that instance, cutting the grass satisfies some of the verbiage in that ordinance, which then buys them another 120, 150, 180 days, whatever the time frame is. I don't know the specifics of that, but in terms of dealing with these abandoned structures, it's an issue, and a lot of it has to do with legalities. But I can tell you, the city works pretty hard on that. They're pretty aggressive.
Let's see. Chef Adam says, I'm not sure how getting lunches catered from McDonald's and other fast food places actually meet the nutritional guidelines.
Well, I didn't even know that McDonald's is one of the vendors. If they are, I can't go down that line. I don't know. I guess I'm saying that hopefully the nutritional need is being met. I know that if a kid is hungry, then nothing else works. Nothing. That's just one of the basic needs that has to happen. And I guess I'm just assuming that it's being met.
Let's see. I think 2 or 3 more here would come in. Let me check. Let's see here. So Tyler Austin asks, with your extensive knowledge of the recreation department, it would be nice to see the new ball fields used for year-round tournaments that could generate revenue and give the youth more opportunity to play.
I agree. I totally agree. I spoke to this a little bit last week. We have the infrastructure in place. We have the resources in place to now use it as a revenue producing entity, for the town, especially the fact that we have the hotel here and can actually house groups that come in if it's for a night or two or whatever the case may be. So I do agree with that. I think one of the things that you always have to do, and there's a way to do this as well, is you want to be respectful of other activities that's going on, whether it's recreational, whether it's high school sports, middle school sports, whether it's band, whether it's different things that go on in the community. I don't think you necessarily want to step on those toes, but I do think there's a way to work out a schedule, a master schedule, where it works for everybody, and the city could generate some revenue off of it. You see people in town, and all of a sudden they've got to eat a meal at Jalisco's or David's Catfish or Camp 31 or Burger King or wherever it is. But I do agree, we have the facilities in place to certainly start trying to go down that road.
Let's see. High school brings in McDonald's, Popeyes, Pizza Pro, and David's.
Yummy.
Another question text in. What exactly is the district that you are, I guess asking the actual perimeter or area?
The lines are crazy. And it's not by design. There's numbers. There's 5 districts. Okay. District 1, I think I'm right. There's 760 registered voters in District 1. And that's about that for all of them, just to even the numbers up a little bit. But I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes versions of District 2. If you went up to Municipal Stadium at the 4-way stop and looked back towards town on Belleville, District 2 runs from that 4-way stop down to Chief McGugan's house. What is that, Rankin? That's Rankin.
I think so.
That's Rankin. It runs all the way down to Rankin, and it stops there. Now, you get up to a point there across from the old dialysis center where the left side of the road is actually District 4, and that goes up to what we call the townhouse apartments. So that little cutout would be in District 4. So you have District 2 from the 4-way stop at Municipal Stadium down to the 4-way stop at Rankin Street. And then if you got on Escambia Avenue, you would start just past the tennis courts and go to the hotel. But when you get to Gordon Lane, it's just the west side of Escambia. And let me back up on the Belleville. Everything west of Belleville. West End, St. Nicholas, Poplar, McMillan, Edgewood, all at Garrett Street, all of that is part of District 2. And then when you get to Evergreen Avenue, if you had your back to the elementary school looking down Evergreen Avenue, it would go down to Rankin Street once again, but just the right side of the road, the west side. The left side would be District 4 again. So the lines are kind of squirrely and crazy like that all throughout Bruton, but there is a rhyme or reason to it. I can tell you this from a trying to cover and trying to walk a district. District 2 is probably the most walkable. It's probably, in terms of proximity and being close. If you had District 5, Miss Barton and Mr. Moy, are running in District 5, it starts there at Rankin and goes all the way to Alco and out the 4-lane. So you're talking about trying to cover that area in terms of land and space. That's got to be the most spacious district. But of course, if you add up the people, it's going to be pretty close to 750, 760.
Another question. Let's see how to phrase this. What, if any, connection does the city of Bruton and Bruton City Schools have with each other? I guess I'm asking that right.
They're standalone entities. They obviously partner up on a lot of things, and I think a portion of the sales tax is earmarked for the school board, and they certainly. It's invaluable that they have good working relationships. They are in terms of the connectivity and how they are wired in. I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I know that the school board is appointed by the city council, but the school board, once they are on that, they are there. They don't necessarily answer to the city council. They're a standalone board. They're a standalone entity, as is the school system. But they certainly enjoy some partnerships. Yes.
Let me see here. Rob Anderson wants to ask, is the lunchroom situation at Miller a council issue or a school board issue?
It would definitely not be a city council issue. It would definitely not be a city council issue.
Yeah, I would think that would be. Let's see here. Get back to these. What are your thoughts on I call it the mural park, but I think the correct term is the market park.
Okay.
And the activities that the market park provides.
Well, I think for those that remember, and we certainly do, that area had become one of the biggest eyesores in town, if not the biggest. Dilapidated buildings. I mean, it was just tough to make that little hook off of 31 on the Belleville and see that sitting there. So what it has become is certainly appealing to the eye. I think most of that was done through some grant opportunities, and to clean that up, it is certainly presentable now. You can see anytime there's a photo opportunity in town, our young people or wedding parties, whatever it is, they usually incorporate that as part of some of the pictures. You know, you've seen the prom pictures, you've seen the ads that go into the football program or whatnot. A lot of people frequent the area. I think I'm not sure if the COVID-19 has suspended all the farmers market activities down there, but that was where they set up for a time. Certainly provided a great venue for that. The outdoor concerts that you've seen when it's lit up at night, I don't know if you've ever been to any of them. I've been to one or two. It certainly presents well. It works in terms of traffic flow through there. The parking in the back, it transitions nicely into the park across the street. So once again, I think that was a good thing. I think that made an eyesore something that we can all be proud of. I think it presents Brewton well. I personally like the art design that was chosen. I think Megan came up with that maybe. I don't know. It seems to have been received well.
What are your thoughts on the Chamber of Commerce and or the cooperation between the City of Brewton and the Chamber of Commerce?
I'll be honest with you, and this was, I guess, just not knowing on my part. You call it ignorance, call it whatever you want to call it. I didn't know that I always assumed that the Chamber was an extension of the city. That, there was some funding that went along with that. There was a partnership, if you will. And I can't imagine not being proud of the efforts of the Chamber. We've seen in recent years a number of things that have come online. Probably my personal favorite, and I hate to say this to Blueberry Festival lovers, because I like the Blueberry Festival. I like Porch Fest. Porch Fest fits me the time of the year. I think it was last year when the weather was just perfect for it. We're down there in the historic residential district, and there aren't many communities where you can cut off a 2-block section in the middle of town and have a concert on every other house. That's a cool deal to me. I certainly the rodeo has been a big hit. The Blueberry Festival speaks for itself. I think it's been around for 30 years or so. Not many festivals last that long. That's a credit to our community, the organizers, the people who support it. The Crawfish Festival has been, not the Crawfish Festival, the Kicking at the Creek, where we go down and have crawfish. That's always been a nice time. So the Chamber, one of the things, and we've talked about this a lot on our show, people like to say there's nothing to do in Brewton. Well, get your calendar out and start marking off all the things and opportunities we do have. And I think you'll quickly find out there's not enough time to do everything. So I'm just one person, but I've been ecstatic with what the Chamber has done and how they've done it and the people they've brought into the community over the years, and certainly look forward to that when it's safe to do so, to doing that some more.
Well, I've run through all my texts that I have at this point.
You've heard me say this. I don't believe in meeting just to meet. If we've answered some questions and addressed some comments, that's certainly what we wanted to do here tonight. Certainly appreciate everybody being in with us. 1 week left to go. If you're in District 2, you're going to see me again. You're going to see me again real soon. I've enjoyed the race. Looking forward to running out in the last week, and then next Tuesday seeing how it shakes out. If you haven't committed your vote yet, I would love to have you consider me. Like I said earlier, I want a job, and I want everything that comes with it. Looking forward to having the opportunity to serve Brewton. Born and raised here, going to die here, and think I have something to offer in terms of passion and want to. So over the next week or so, if you would like an in-person visit, I've got a mask. Would love to do so. I'll post my phone number one more time. You can call or text, and I'll come to you whenever it's convenient. But I certainly appreciate everybody who came in tonight. Ken, I appreciate you handling the question part of it, because that's what kind of had me screwed up last week.
Sure.
And I appreciate you getting us out there, and hope everybody has a good evening and a good rest of the week. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Y'all have a good one. Thank you.